I, 31M, lost the love of my life, 36F, and I don't know how to cope. I recently ended a relationship with this girl, the best partnership I have experienced. We were together for just over 2 years when she said something that caused me to storm out and leave her behind. To summarize, I apologize, but there are many things mentioned here that I cannot discuss with anyone. When we started to get to know each other, she informed me that she had recently lost her job and was facing a challenging financial situation. She suggested that I consider that burden before moving forward, as she would need support to rebuild her life. Over time, she expressed a desire to stop working because she was exhausted from nearly 15 years of enduring the tumultuous job market. I did not oppose the idea, but I was not in a position to support her financially. Instead, I offered her the opportunity to study a new field and find a new job, which she did, and I paid for her education. She requested a laptop and a phone to facilitate her studies, and I provided those as well. She also had an ex whom she had broken up with 2 years before we met, during which time she was grappling with her financial difficulties. 2 months after we began dating, unaware of her situation, she asked him for money. I found out about this later. While in our relationship, she ceased to ask him for financial assistance, but maintained contact because he had supported her when she first lost her job, and she said the breakup was her fault. They decided to stay friends, which I disapproved of, but allowed to happen because she highlighted how caring and kind he was, and how he had been there for her for a period of 2 years following their breakup. I would often read their messages, which she didn't mind, and honestly, I didn't find anything inappropriate or alarming. However, their conversations appeared lively and quite friendly. When confronted, she always assured me they were simply friends. I trusted her. As months passed, our relationship progressed, and I took care of her every need and desire. She was sweet, kind, supportive, everything a man could ask for in a girlfriend, though she often underwent drastic mood swings. Some of these mood changes would lead to outbursts of anger. At times, she would say things like, "I don't want to talk to you today," or suggest I find another girl, flirt with someone, or look at my friend, claiming I would like her. This frustrated me immensely. She would make these comments even when we hadn't fought, and her excuse was that she wanted to see my reaction to test my commitment. She consistently projected the possibility of leaving me while claiming she loved me. At times, she would tease me about my ex, implying I should get back together with her, just because I mentioned that we had a good relationship, which we ended amicably, without the desire to revisit. We engaged in many profound conversations, some of which left me feeling that something was amiss in our relationship. When I brought my concerns to her attention, she would take the time to clarify and reassure me, but I often felt manipulated yet could not pinpoint why. Thus, I rationalized that I must be in the wrong. Her actions indicated a deep affection for me. She had unresolved issues, including childhood traumas and family problems, to the extent that she distanced herself from them. She often subjected me to silent treatments whenever sensitive topics about her life or our relationship arose, leaving me feeling frantic in my attempts to elicit a response. Occasionally on Sundays, when something similar occurred, I experienced intense loneliness. I carefully selected which topics to suppress and which to address to avoid conflict. When I bottled things up, I became isolated and restless, scrolling through the internet for distraction, even occasionally downloading a hookup app to browse without intention. I never communicated with anyone or met anyone new. I remained faithful. I recognized that this was wrong, and eventually, I resolved to manage conflicts more effectively. I ceased using those apps and never returned to them. One day, she discovered my actions through my emails. We had an open policy of checking each other's phones without fear since we had nothing to hide. I did not hesitate to admit my mistake and immediately apologized, explaining that my actions stemmed from boredom and loneliness. I never meant to shift blame onto her, as only those who fail place their failures on others. I acknowledged my mistake and apologized for it. She swiftly lost trust and enthusiasm in me, though she still claimed to love me, resulting in a rocky and frustrating few weeks, the duration of one of my visits to her home country. However, things were never the same after that, despite her mentioning forgiveness and a desire to remain together. We were in a long-distance relationship, and amid the drama's ups and downs, we began planning for her to move to my hometown. This was a significant transition. I was enthusiastic. Eventually, I realized I had made a substantial financial error, causing the move to be postponed for several more months. I informed her, which led to an angry reaction on her part. I was subjected to another silent treatment for 3 months, during which I went absolutely stir-crazy. I attempted everything to re-establish contact, but she insisted she no longer cared about our relationship. We tried to communicate during those 3 months, but our conversations quickly devolved into arguments, leading to hang-ups and further confrontation. Finally, when emotions settled and she started responding to me again, I sensed a detachment in her demeanor. However, I could still feel her desire to communicate. I sensed that she loved me, but I could not truly feel her affection. After further discussions, we reached the conclusion that she had no trust and lacked the desire to fully invest in me again. Yet, she performed actions that suggested otherwise. For instance, I had quit my job and was searching for a new one, resulting in financial strain for both of us. I was interviewing for positions, and the laptop I had purchased for her proved instrumental during this time. One evening, while relaxing together, I expressed appreciation for the laptop, noting how it had been beneficial. I wanted to emphasize that our lives were falling into place and our love was positive and supportive. Her response was, I could have found another way to get that laptop when I needed it," referring to her ex, who had offered to assist her in purchasing one about 2 months after we began dating, a proposition she rejected out of respect for me as her boyfriend. I felt grateful that she respected me, which partly led to my decision to buy it for her. After that, I was left speechless, even though this had occurred before she learned of my previous misstep. Similar incidents occurred where she reiterated that she could easily reach out to her ex if she required help and that I should man up and provide her assistance, reiterating she did not need to lean on him. I absorbed all that drama, thinking it was my fault and that I deserved her unkindness. Following this, she adopted an attitude of, "I love you, I care for you, but I don't need you." She told me that if I wanted to leave, I could go, but if I chose to stay, I would have to accept that she would not fight for the relationship nor fully invest her love in me until she regained trust. I accepted this because she is the love of my life. After several months of enjoyable yet frustrating times, an incident occurred, which is detailed here. https www.reddit.com r relationship advice comments 1i8 lb comment m8 vfsa context equals 3 https www.reddit.com r relationship advice comments 1i8 lb comment m8 vfsa context equals 3 After I stormed out, she secured it. When she finally did, she expressed that I had abandoned her and left her to suffer. She claimed that I ruined her life by moving to a new city and that she faced a difficult period due to lack of funds, her gender identity, she is transgender, and felt pressured to reach out to her ex for financial assistance. According to her, my absence constituted abandonment, which I believe is entirely untrue. Somehow, I ended up conceding that I had abandoned her because of my past mistakes, even though she claimed she didn't need me. When I agreed to care for her in every aspect, it was out of love, believing she felt the same way. I thought, why not be there for the person you love? I am plagued by guilt for leaving her behind, fully aware that I would have never left had she not said what she did. I feel empty, as if the world has lost all its color. Everything feels meaningless, and to make matters worse, she has expressed her hatred towards me, which holds significant weight as she rarely resorts to those feelings. My situation is lengthy and tedious, and I often feel like she never truly loved me, not even for a day. She seemed to enjoy the financial support and the uncomplicated lifestyle I provided. I never minded offering her that, but not for someone who doesn't love me in return. The guilt is overwhelming, and I genuinely worry about her. She despises me, yet she occupies the other side of my heart. I have never loved anyone the way I love her. I am unsure of how to navigate this situation. Story 2. Went through my 23M girlfriend's 23F phone and found something. How would you proceed? First post here, so please be patient with me. My 23-year-old girlfriend started medical school back in July 2024. We have been together for nearly 3.5 years, throughout most of our undergraduate studies. I live in the same city as she does, about 5 minutes away, and I am currently pursuing a graduate degree. Things have been challenging since she began medical school, not going to lie. She is incredibly busy all the time. I cannot even pretend to grasp the stress she faces. I genuinely wish I could assist her more in that regard. She is naturally an anxious individual, but this situation has pushed her to her limits. She studies every single day, including weekends, for the most part. She tells me she always feels behind and is constantly trying to catch up. I believe I have done a reasonably good job of respecting her need to prioritize her career. I'm also quite busy. I am enrolled in a master's program in engineering, engaged in research, and work as a teaching assistant. So I'm also quite occupied. We live just 5 minutes apart, yet we hardly see each other during the week. Maybe once or twice every 2 weeks we'll manage a quick dinner at night where we chat. This only happens if I make an effort to visit her place. The weekends are designated as our time to hang out, be with each other, and strengthen our relationship, or so I thought. By weekend, I mean we do something on one of the days, perhaps go see a movie and then make dinner together, or go out to bars and then spend the night together. However, half of the first day and the entirety of the second day are usually reserved for studying or schoolwork. This is fine with me. Of course, I would prefer to see her more often, but I understand this is our reality, so I am trying to make the best of it. In my opinion, this is a significant sacrifice that I wish she would recognize. I can't help but compare us to normal, or other, relationships where both partners work full-time and or have far more time for activities together. I feel guilty, but I genuinely feel sad when I see other couples enjoying their time together. Nonetheless, I am trying to make the best of our situation. However, lately, this approach has not been effective. The last 2 weekends have been consumed by studying or her family visiting, which occurs once or twice a month. Don't misunderstand me. I love her family, but she is someone who is extremely close to her mother. For instance, she shares every detail of her life with her, calls her at least 5 times a day, and considers her her best friend. That's wonderful, and I'm happy she has someone similar to her and someone to vent to in addition to me. So this weekend arrived, and I was genuinely looking forward to it since we hadn't had a proper date in some time, and I was feeling a bit disconnected. On Thursday evening, I went over after her classes, and we picked up food and cuddled on the couch together. I asked if we could have sex since it had been a few weeks, and it seemed like a good moment. She declined, saying she was too tired. Okay, that's understandable. She mentioned we could do it the next day instead. So Friday arrived, and after we both finished our classes, I came over and prepared dinner while she studied a bit. Then we relaxed for a short while before planning to go out with some friends. I thought we could have sex during that time before heading out, but she didn't initiate anything, as usual. I asked if we could after returning, and she said probably. This is where I believe I made a mistake. We went out together, had a great time, and returned with me slightly intoxicated and her sobering up. What began as some teasing escalated into an argument when I asked if we could have sex. She said no, citing stress about school. On a Friday night after going out, I wish I could help her. I suggested we could do it the following day instead. She replied probably not. This upset me greatly. We both began to raise our voices, with me expressing that she didn't care and couldn't spare 20 minutes once a month to make me happy and feel close to her. Physical touch and intimacy are my love languages. I told her that her behavior made me unhappy and said she was being unreasonable. This was where I know I made a mistake. There's no justification for that, and I feel terrible for saying it. My emotions just came pouring out. I stated that even just making out on the couch and cuddling while naked would have sufficed. She repeatedly insisted she needed to go to bed and that I just needed to stop complaining about it. I do understand she was genuinely tired, as she had only gotten about 4 hours of sleep on 2 separate nights that week. So I understand, but I felt so unheard. I started to cry uncontrollably, not out of anger toward her, but in sadness. Eventually, I took a shower and we went to bed. The next morning, we continued bickering. She left for school to study. Here's another instance where I think I went wrong. While I was showering, I could hear her typing on her phone and chatting with her mom. So when she was gone the next day, I took her iPad and watched some television on it. Then my curiosity got the best of me and I looked at her messages. I know, a terrible violation of trust, and I feel awful. However, what I saw made me uneasy. She complained about me to her mom, saying, "He's crying like a baby. He won't stop talking, I just need to sleep. He makes me cringe, I feel sick. And the most troubling part was when her mom asked, "You don't think he would hit you, right?" She didn't respond for several minutes because she was in the shower. Then her mom replied, "Do I need to call the police? Let me know as soon as possible. Please, I'm genuinely worried." What? I have never given any indication that I would ever harm anyone, let alone my girlfriend. I've never been in a fight in my life, and I would never dream of laying a finger on her. What has she said to her mother about me in the past that has led her to think this? If my mother ever implied something like that, I would immediately shut that down. Her only response was, "I don't think so, he'd have to be foolish to try something like that." I realize she technically didn't say no, but wow, you would expect a more definitive response like, "No, Mom, he's not like that." All the while, I was just lying in bed, crying, minding my own business. I obviously had no intention of harming her. What is happening? I don't know how or if I should address this. On one hand, if her mother views me this way, how much longer can this relationship possibly last? I genuinely want her to tell her mom, "Sorry I even suggested that. He would never do such a thing." But I know there's a snowball's chance in hell that she would do that. If I bring this up with her, she'll realize I read her messages, which is a terrible violation of trust. I just feel so unheard, unloved, and hurt. Who mocks their partner behind their back for crying, even if it seems like something trivial? I don't think this is trivial, by the way. The lack of intimacy and quality time together has created a rift in our relationship that is difficult to repair. I acknowledge that in the past I haven't managed it well, being sarcastic, holding grudges for her missing events. I know she would have wanted to attend if not for her study commitments, and being somewhat cold toward her as a result. We've had one or two serious arguments in the past, which I know were my fault. She has accepted my apologies and afforded me additional chances, so I feel like I should extend the same consideration to her. But this is a recurring pattern: her busy schedule and inability to compartmentalize and make efforts to set aside her anxiety for the sake of our relationship leads to me feeling neglected. Then she simply tells me, "This is how it is," or "I can't change anything." I have suggested that we attend therapy together, but she has declined. I am unsure how to proceed at this stage. I cannot continue in a situation where my basic needs are consistently pushed aside. It's disheartening because I honestly believe I am quite understanding and do not ask for much. Is having intimate time for just 30 minutes once every week or two too much to request? I know it won't be like that every week, but at this point, I feel like I am constantly pleading. I am at a loss for what to do. I feel like I have lost the woman I love so deeply. Things used to be so wonderful. I don't know whether to confront her about this or not. Of course, she went out with her friends tonight to the bars, so she clearly has free time. She just isn't choosing to make time for me. I feel like asking for 30 minutes of intimacy together once every week or two is not an unreasonable request. Yet, she makes me feel guilty for it. So Reddit, what would you do in my situation? I apologize for the lengthy and perhaps somewhat convoluted post, but I needed to express my thoughts. She continues to text me, professing her love and stating that she just needs some time, acting as if everything is fine and it was merely another minor argument. But I feel so hurt. I feel nauseous and unable to eat. This is my first relationship, so I feel I need some advice. Please be honest if needed. I want to know if I am being unreasonable. Story 3. My 27M girlfriend, 28F, of 8 years, broke up with me yesterday and then told me she's leaving the country in a month. Hello, everyone. My mind is a jumble of thoughts, and I could really use some assistance in sorting through everything. I would appreciate any advice on how to move forward or what you believe might be the root cause of the situation. Brief, as concise as possible. Context: this entire situation takes place in Austin, Texas. I am white. I have no siblings. She is Latina and has a younger sister, 2 older sisters, and a brother. This detail is relevant. We were romantically involved in high school and began dating a few years after graduation. We were happy together until 2020, when COVID-19, protests, and other events created chaos. I consider myself to have common-sense conservative views, while she leans significantly left, although I am uncertain about the extent since we rarely discussed it. Whenever I attempted to address the topic, she would often shut down and say nothing. A significant incident occurred for us in late 2020 when she shared an Instagram post containing inflammatory political language, which was out of character for her. Concerned that she did not recognize how inappropriate the post was, I replied, asking for her reasoning behind sharing it. I don't recall the exact conversation, but I was very cautious and patient throughout. She expressed a desire to meet and talk in person. Feeling apprehensive, we met, and she had a distant demeanor. She broke up with me, stating she would live with her, somewhat affluent, oldest sister in California. Being completely blindsided, I asked her to explain how she reached this conclusion. After a brief conversation, she seemed to regain clarity, apologized profusely, and promised to rebuild my trust. I continued dating her, although my confidence was shaken. This detail is significant, I assure you. Fast forward to present day, we were possibly doing better than we had ever been, enjoying regular intimacy and all the positive feelings that come with it. In 2022, we moved in together, but soon after, her dog became ill, and her family decided to euthanize her. Understanding that she was upset, I refrained from making any intimate advances for some time. As a result, we did not engage in sexual activity for 3 months. During that period, I made multiple attempts to connect, but she consistently rejected me. When I brought it up as an issue we needed to address, she agreed. Although there was some improvement, our sexual relationship remained sporadically fulfilling, following a troubling pattern of occasional intimacy followed by dry spells. We loved living together. However, our rent increased by 30%, and I needed to save money for a car. Therefore, I suggested we live apart for a time with our families, planning to reunite when our financial situation improved. I have been staying with my father since then, while she has been living with her youngest sister, and we were generally getting along well during this period. Unfortunately, I began to notice a downward trajectory in our relationship. She transitioned from living with her youngest sister to her oldest sister, whom I will refer to as Olivia for this post. Around 8 months ago, she moved into a relatively nice house near downtown, approximately an hour's drive from me in traffic, with Olivia. Olivia is a lawyer for Disney and has done work for the NFL and Apple, so she is quite financially stable. Additionally, she comes from California and holds very liberal views. I recall her recounting a story from her time as a substitute teacher where she repeatedly referred to an 8-year-old student as a little queer boy and described encouraging his twerking behavior. This struck me as rather concerning and inappropriate. Olivia is very focused on energies, to a somewhat absurd degree, believing in crystals and chakras. She also has an erratic energy and a loud, dominating personality, which is typical for someone in her profession. I remember that my girlfriend warned me prior to meeting her that Olivia historically does not get along with her sister's boyfriends. While Olivia has always been cordial to me, there is an affectation to her friendliness that feels somewhat frantic. This may seem like a lot of information about her, but I believe it's crucial context. My ex-girlfriend is generally a passive and agreeable individual, and as far as I know, she does not wholly share her sister's views. Now, for context, she moved in with Olivia 8 months ago, and since then, I found myself seeing her less frequently. When I did visit, she made an effort not to disturb her sister with noise, which I found bothersome enough to mention to her. I indicated that I had noticed her being more curt and unkind toward me, as well as the lack of time we spent together. Of course, our sexual encounters were infrequent, and when they did occur, they felt unsatisfactory. This situation continued for a while without improvement. I mentioned that we needed to address our intimacy, to which she agreed but did not follow through with therapy. About 3 months ago, I finally sat her down and expressed that I was nearing my breaking point. We were barely intimate anymore, and when it did happen, it felt lifeless and unengaged on her part. I stressed that I did not want to bring up the issue again, and that we needed to solve it now or risk ending our relationship, which was the last thing I desired. After enduring this on and off intimacy issue since 2022, she seemed willing to work on it. We may have had a few okay weeks, but once again, the issue resurfaced. I believe it was Wednesday night when I came over to her home. We were preparing to visit a friend's house. Since I rarely see her after settling in, I attempted to show her some physical affection, nothing sexual, just light touching. She abruptly withdrew my hands from her. This upset me, yet we proceeded with our night. Later, after getting home, I texted her in a considerate tone, letting her know that her reaction affected my mood. The following day, she did not respond until late, at which point she suggested we meet to talk in person. I felt a sense of dread similar to what I had felt in 2020. Sure enough, on Friday, she arrived, ended our relationship, and announced that she was selling her car and belongings to leave the United States for Colombia at the end of next month with her sisters, because she no longer felt safe here. She made some rather uninformed comments about birth citizenship, and it is clear she is being influenced by Olivia in her political views. This situation completely blindsided me and drew parallels to the incident in 2020. After a moment of conversation, I pointed out this similarity, and she appeared shocked and even frightened, claiming she did not remember anything about it. I asked her multiple times, "Are you sure? Really?" And she remained adamant that she recalled none of it. This experience was bewildering, frustrating, and painful for me. Nevertheless, I assured her it did happen. This led me to consider the possibility that she might be undergoing a mental breakdown. In summary of the breakup, she claimed we had significant differences in essential areas, like politics and morals. In total, we have spent perhaps 2 hours discussing politics throughout our entire relationship, and trust me, I am not extreme in my views. She expressed that she no longer felt romantic feelings for me, and that the stress of our relationship became overwhelming. She cited the numerous times I attempted to address our issues as adding to her stress, which seems counterintuitive to me. She was kind while breaking things off, but none of this adds up to me. She stated that she stayed with me because she is a people pleaser and enjoyed making me happy. Isn't that what relationships are about? I told her I fully intended to marry her eventually, prior to our move-in together. When I asked if she was aware of this, she said she had no idea, merely assuming we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. This realization was painful since I have always strived to be thoughtful and patient, doing everything I could for her. Moving in together was the initial step toward marriage, which seemed clear to me, yet we never progressed beyond that. I took her seriously and thanked her for being part of my life, but I asked her kindly to seek professional help before making such a drastic decision that could drastically alter her life. Last night, I asked if she could meet again to discuss this further, possibly with a counselor, to gain clarity. I acknowledge that this is a lengthy post, and I sincerely appreciate anyone who has taken the time to read it. Once again, I would appreciate any advice on how to move forward, what may have gone wrong, if I should attempt to salvage the relationship, if she is correct in her feelings or experiencing a mental breakdown, and whether her sister has influenced her views against me in recent months. Thank you once more. Story 4. I, 18F, need clarity on a relationship dynamic with a guy, 21M. Is there potential for a future relationship? Random throwaway account. I am seeking some clarity on this situation. Back in October, I asked a guy out at the gym. I didn't know him personally, but I had previously approached him with a question, and he was happy to respond and lend his assistance. I was charmed by his kindness towards me, and I admired his commitment in the gym because there was never a night I wouldn't see him there. The evening I approached him to ask him out went well. He appeared enthusiastic and swiftly took control of the situation. He took my number, inquired about my schedule, and mentioned that he would send me a text. I received a message the following night, and within a couple of days, we arranged a date in person. The date was planned just over a week in advance because he was ill at the time. This is significant because, exactly 1 week before our scheduled date, he sent me a lengthy text explaining that he appreciated my initiative in approaching him and was flattered, but had realized he was not ready to commit to something new, and it wouldn't be fair to me to begin something when he wasn't prepared. I was a bit disappointed at the time, but I respected how he communicated that to me rather than leading me on or ignoring me. The bare minimum, I understand. Regardless, I thanked him and assumed that was the end of it. I thought after that situation that we would stop communicating, but it has been the opposite. Since then, we have had countless conversations that have become increasingly personal. Initially, I asked quite a few questions regarding gym routines and diet, and he devoted a lot of time discussing these various topics while considering my experience when offering advice. It gave me the impression that my inquiries were not bothersome but welcomed, as so much time was invested in our discussions. Edit, I should mention, we only converse at the gym. We have rarely engaged in any brief texting. After a short while, our discussions shifted away from the gym and began to revolve around our lives. In terms of the personal conversations, sometimes topics arose that I personally wouldn't disclose to a random stranger, some information I wouldn't even share with a good friend. During this time, there were 2 instances where I suggested we hang out as friends. His life goals align with mine, we share similar backgrounds, he is very disciplined, and I respect him as a person. I wanted to get to know him better. So about a month after I had asked him out, I proposed we do something together, and he once again responded enthusiastically. He immediately checked his schedule and indicated when it would work, noting that we would discuss it again when the time arrived. I had a vacation in the meantime, so it had to be postponed. We agreed that we enjoyed getting to know each other. I was looking forward to it. He did clarify again that he wasn't ready for a relationship, and I believed we had an understanding. When the time came, I, being a very proactive person, took the initiative to bring it up once more. Let's do something, as we had discussed. However, this time when I mentioned it, he appeared rather defensive. He said we could, but reiterated that he wasn't ready for a relationship and wasn't sure what we would do. I left our conversation that evening feeling puzzled. Does he only see me as a potential girlfriend? I took a step back after that conversation and stopped initiating discussions to see what would happen. On average, I'd approach more often. There was a brief period where we didn't chat, but we eventually reconnected, and now our interactions have returned to how they were before, catching up on daily life, discussing progress, and exchanging advice, etc. A few details to note: we consistently make eye contact, he always opens the door first, is more than willing to help whenever asked, tries to crack jokes, and teases me during our conversations. He consistently gives the impression that our interactions are positive and appreciated. I am confused because despite avoiding any advance in our friendship beyond the gym, more personal and vulnerable topics are being explored, showing progress that is celebrated with me, and for someone who isn't interested, he is exceptionally kind and respectful towards me. I respect him as an individual, and I desire a more defined relationship, whether it be as friends or otherwise. However, I also value myself and know that boundaries matter. I am the sort of person who likes to dedicate time and effort to relationships, and I am struggling to balance this dynamic. I have not been denied the chance for something in the future, and I cannot determine if this is about time and patience, presuming it could work when the moment is right, or if I'm lingering, wasting time, wondering when. It's difficult to say it has to be all or nothing. But what does it mean to be in between? There are plenty of moments we have shared that I could elaborate on to support the idea of there being something, but this post would end up excessively long. I am seeking clarity because I do not want to remain in this situation if it is not worth my time. I haven't talked to anyone else during this period because I wish to see this work. What can I make of this? Is there potential for things to develop? Thank you in advance for your thoughts and advice.